The campaign messages from Republican candidates for president in 2024 are pretty full of darkness, division, and a big sense of foreboding about the future of the country. That stands in stark contrast to what we've been hearing from President Biden's campaign for re-election. They made that point with a that's huge for this period of time, $25 million ad buy the week of the Republican debate, to send a different message, including about how the United States has come back since the pandemic.
In small towns and big cities, we're coming back stronger than ever. Manufacturing jobs are coming home. High-speed computer chips are getting made right here. America is leading the world in clean energy. There are some who say America is failing. Not Joe Biden. He believes our best days are ahead because he believes in the American people.
Those who bet against America are learning how wrong they are. It's never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. Never.
Julie Chavez Rodriguez is the campaign manager for President Biden's re-election campaign. Previously, she was a senior advisor to President Biden and was also a special assistant to President Obama. And she joins me now. First of all, I'm so grateful you are here. You are running a campaign, which, by the way, is a very busy job, and you're moving to Delaware. So thank you for being here with me tonight. So I wanted to start just with some of the news we learned today. And you're a very savvy political operator. Obviously, you're running a campaign. I just want to get your reaction to the prospect of a criminal trial starting on the day before Super Tuesday.
Well, look, Jen, thank you, so much for having me this evening. And it's just, I think we've seen such incredible support. And, I definitely understand that those are matters that will continue to play out in the courts and obviously, for their campaign to contend with. But what we're really focused on is just making sure that the American people really know what President Biden has done, what Vice President Biden has done to be able to support the American voter, what they're doing to lower drug prices, to lower costs for families, and to make sure, as you saw in the ad that you just showed, that, we're really reminding folks that America is back and that this president and vice president have made a tremendous investment, not just in the country, but in our people.
I know you were probably watching the Republican debate last week, even as you were, of course, talking about and portraying to the American people all of the things President Biden has done. What stuck out to you from that debate as you were watching it? What was a moment that stuck out to you? Well,
I think for me it was really seeing that it was a consistent sort of race to a real extreme agenda. What we saw on stage was maybe not necessarily certain candidates, but definitely their agenda and their policies were front and center. And it was a real extreme conversation about, banning abortion and having a national ban on abortion. Being able to, take different approaches to addressing such critical issues. It wasn't about real solutions for the American people. And that's what we're really focused on, is making sure that we're communicating that contrast. And what we saw on the debate stage, again, was a real race towards this extreme agenda that we've continued to see from so many of the GOP primary candidates right now. And it's out of touch with the American voter. It's so extreme, and we know that, that's something that's not a real winning agenda or a, winning sort of campaign.
Well, I know you guys did an ad on abortion after the debate last week, and it's always telling where campaigns spend money, right? Because it's where it sticks out in your mind and where you think you can have the biggest impact. How do you combat this argument, which also drives me insane, that many of these Republican candidates are making, that Democratic candidates they support more abortions in a third trimester. They support abortion till 40 weeks, till birth.
It's just not accurate. And I think,
what do you wish people were saying out there?
Well, I wish that people really understood that, the president and the vice president are focused on restoring fundamental freedoms for the American people. What we saw in the Dobbs decision was, I think, a real eye-opener for so many women across this country, for so many families across this country, where all of a sudden, today in America, my younger niece has less rights than I do. And that's what, people are really starting to see and understand about how just extreme their agenda is. And what the president and vice president are focused on is restoring Roe v. Wade and ensuring that that becomes the law of the land, because that's an important, sort of right that we have fought for and we need to continue to fight for.
One of the moments that stood out to me in that debate was when the majority of candidates raised their hand and said they would support Donald Trump even if he was convicted of a crime. Now, I know you're focused on a positive, proactive agenda that the president is implementing, which is hugely important, what impacts the American public. But what was going through your head in that moment?
Well, I think it just shows that all of them are really, trying to take the more extreme position and really trying to sort of take that, race for the MAGA base and take, again, sort of just extreme positions that are out of touch with voters. By saying that climate change is a hoax is one example. It's just absolutely out of touch with the reality that we're facing as a nation and that we're facing as a world. So I think, we want to continue to just make sure that we are really showing how extreme those positions are and that they're, all sort of coming from the same kind of policy agenda that we saw continue to lose in election after election. I think one thing for us that's really exciting, in addition to seeing the kind of enthusiasm for our campaign, is knowing that in the last 38 special elections, Democrats have outperformed by 10%. And that's something that we're going to continue to grow and continue to build on.
That's an important statistic. I don't think a lot of people know. Now, there are a lot of backseat drivers when it comes to running political campaigns. I don't have to tell you, you're probably living that. I know that from working in the White House. And what do you say to Democrats who say the president and the campaign, they should all be talking about Trump's legal issues and these criminal indictments much more, and it's a missed opportunity?
Well, I think the president, when he ran for office in the first place, was really, adamant about ensuring that the Justice Department was an independent, department and that they were able to execute effectively in the ways that they needed to. And so, we're going to continue to ensure that the Justice Department has the ability to do their job. And what we're going to continue to focus on is just, again, the, accomplishments that this president and vice president have achieved, thanks to, again, incredible legislation that we've been able to pass, but also the choice that's before voters right now. And really what's at stake in this election. And, when we're dealing with a Republican field that is scapegoating immigrants, that's talking about banning books, that, again, continues to focus on a national abortion ban, we just know that those are out of touch with so many voters across this country.
So every campaign looks different because they're happening in different moments in time and you're trying to win, to state the obvious. What should people expect about how this campaign will be different from President Biden's election campaign back in 2020?
Well, we're really excited to be able to be headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware. As many folks know, it really is a home for President Biden. It's where he's raised his family. And it really reflects so many of the core values that are true to who he is when it comes to faith and family and hard work. And so being able to be in a city that really exudes those values is one that's really exciting. But also the partnership that we have with the DNC. I think that really is a new playbook that we're writing. And one that we're continuing to build upon because we know that, we need to not just elect President Biden and Vice President Harris, but we need to continue to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. And we know that that kind of partnership is a real winning strategy for us right now.
Julie Chavez Rodriguez, running the presidential campaign, not an easy job. Thank you so much for coming in, for joining me tonight. Good luck with your move to Wilmington. We'll look forward to getting updates in the future.